Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the Fail to Fail podcast with your host, Don Abernathy.
What is going on, everybody? It has been a long time since we've gotten around to another episode of the Fail to Fail podcast, the Digital 410 Network's limited series motivational podcast. But we have a guest for you tonight. Like you guys know, we usually save the nice guest, the deep guest, the unique guest for this podcast. And we've done that once again. If you're a TikToker like myself, you may follow him at PunksNotDad. Joining us from the Great White North, Mr. Jarrett Fleming. Jarrett, how are you doing today, sir?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you you coming in and hanging out with us. Before we get to the juxtaposition of why I'm having you on, let's get a little bit of background for everybody. Give me a little background. Where'd you grow up? What era did you grow up? And what was your childhood like?
For sure. I'm 42 now. I was born in 1980. Just missed the 70s. Glory days of punk rock in 1977. But I was born into a conservative hockey family in Winnipeg, Manitoba. My father was a coach of the local university hockey team there, and he went on to serve as coach and several positions for Hockey Canada, as well as several teams across the NHL, the KHL in Russia, and the Elite Syrian in Sweden as well. So, life of a hockey coach. When I say I lived in several places, people typically ask me if I was an Army brat.
I was going to say it's very reminiscent to the lifestyle and the childhood of an Army brat for sure.
That's right. So our first big move out of Winnipeg, Manitoba in the Canadian prairies was to a small town in the northern Italian mountains of Murano, Italy in 1986. Dad took a job there. And I think that's what really started, he was known within hockey as the Indiana Jones of hockey because he was really everywhere in any given year. That was, we were out there before the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was in grade 1 out there.
Wow.
We're so far north. I was actually in German school, picked up a little bit of German. I'm still able to order a bratwurst if I'm over there.
I wish I would have paid more attention in my German class in high school because where I live in Cape Coral, Florida, we are real big. We are a big tourist destination for Germans. And when I had my IT firm, I had 4 or 5 German clients. Luckily, I have Windows memorized well enough that I could sort through it, even though it's all in German. But, I can speak very little German, but I wish I would have paid a hell of a lot more attention in high school because that's the one language class I did take, but I never finished. And there's a huge population of German tourists down here.
Oh, yeah. Well, my oldest sister, Angie, actually moved to East Germany in the early 90s, got married, and my oldest nieces and nephews, all fluent in English, German, French, and they spent some time in Dubai as well. So they have a little bit of Arabic. So we're definitely a well-traveled family.
Well, I don't want to get full-blown into a history podcast because that's what's the Scuttlebutt's for, but just briefly, explain the importance and the magnitude of living where you lived when the Berlin Wall was coming down or had just come down. I mean, that was world-changing, literally. I mean, more than just the David Hasselhoff video that we all love to this day. I mean, that was a big deal.
Yeah, as a kid, from Winnipeg, which is a pretty, we had a NHL team at the time. They've since come back, the Winnipeg Jets. But I was easily the most world traveled in my grade 2 class, I think,
Absolutely.
At the time, and it really helped me along the way as far as growing myself into who I am and having a pretty broad perspective of life outside of a Canadian prairie town. It was obviously intimidating. The world was a lot bigger then than it is now. So, my teachers didn't speak a lick of English, and we just threw ourselves into these adventures. And I tell you what, though, it was something I'd never trade for the world. And obviously I was super fortunate to have these opportunities, especially to see so much of the world before I had to grow up and pay for it all.
Yeah, right. Well,
but it was something that, was very, very fortunate. Being at such a young age, I didn't understand the fact that it was a unique opportunity at the time. But in hindsight, it was something that definitely shaped me.
And for the people listening might think, well, God, that sucks, not having any grounding or continuity, being at the same high school, same middle school. But that's such a short period, but an important period in your life. But not only that, I think looking back now, you definitely appreciate the fact that, as you were just saying, moving to all these places, living amongst all these different cultures and all these physical environments, it's so well-rounded for one's personality. I mean, I by no means lived on the scale in which you did, but I born in Kentucky, grew up in Ohio, spent 4 years in California, and I've been in Florida for 20 years now. But just living in those 4 different states and those 4 different areas, and during those moves, I'm much like you, a lot of it was driving, a lot of it was flying, but driving through the country, I tell people all the time, there is plenty of middle of nowhere still left out there. I mean, it's out there, but sometimes I and my brother's the same way. Ohio, Montana, where he lived in Big Sky for 8 years, snowboarding. Now he lives out in Vegas. And then I think of some of our friends back home who never left the town we grew up in. It's like, how much are they missing? And not only that, but just their opinions, the way they see things. When you move and you live amongst different people, because every state, every country, every location has a different populace, and that populace has a different way of thinking. And thus, by you living in those different areas, it makes you a more rounded person, opposed to living in one area your entire life and having the same views.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about the 50 states spread out across America down there is, boy, you guys have a lot of culture under one flag, and we're a large country geographically up here, but I think maybe there's 35 million people. When I was growing up, there was 25, 26 million people. So, and most of us are all tucked in very close to the U.S. border.
Yeah.
And for the most part, spread out between Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. There was relatively a humble population of us throughout the prairies. But, I really, I spent most of the last 10 years, my wife's son and I moved to Regina, Saskatchewan 3 years ago now, just under 3 years ago. And we spent majority of the last 10 years in Victoria on Vancouver Island, just off the coast of Vancouver, BC. And, it's really heaven on earth as far as Canada goes. It really is our Florida, where it has the best climate year round for our country. And, mountains and ocean and whales. And because of that fact, I met a lot of the population out there that grew up there and never saw, never saw much of Canada. Really saw no reason to leave because of such natural beauty out there. And it really, I talk about my international experiences, but I've been fortunate enough to live in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC throughout my childhood and adulthood. And, coming back to the prairies after being gone for, 30 years, I'm just, I fell in love with it again. And it seems to be where my heart is right now. There's something to be said about Big Sky country. And, the freedom, on Vancouver Island, if somebody gets a flat tire, the whole island is shut down for hours, if not days. And there's only one road up and one road down. The same scenario happens out here, and you make a left turn onto a gravel road and carry on with your life. And there's just something to be said about that. The people out here are phenomenal, and it's part of the reason why we moved back here was to, have this, my son's grandparents' influence on him, and really the small town local experience that exists out here to be, part of his influence growing up as well.
I was just thinking, you're talking about, somebody car breaks down, it brings the traffic to a standstill. Well, we have the same problem down here, but it's not because of narrow thoroughfares. It's because people are lazy. I was thinking, I was born in 78. You were born in 80. You know as well as I did, cars were garbage in the 80s up until the mid-90s unless you had money. And so anybody who had a car, whether it was a 98 Ford Escort, a Chevette, a early model Honda, those things broke down. You never knew if you're going to get to work on time, your fuel pump's going to go out, your alternator's going to fail. We all spent a lot of time jumping our cars in first gear and pushing them off the road, right?
Very much so.
People down here run out of gas or something, they could be driving a Kia Rio and they will not get out and push that damn thing. They will just let it sit in the traffic. One day there was a guy who had a little MG Boxer, 2-seater convertible, sitting right by a church parking lot entrance, and then we have what we call the Cape Coral Voice. They're retirees who volunteer to be kind of like assistants to the police. So whenever there's an accident, they do traffic control. Whenever there's DUI checkpoints, they stand around as witnesses. And so the voice officer has his little car parked there with his lights on, and now they're blocking 2 lanes of traffic. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I asked the guy, I said, does neutral work? Oh, yeah. I can help you. It was like literally 5 feet into the parking lot instead of blocking 2 lanes out of 3-lane traffic. Oh, no, tow truck's here now. Guy had been standing out there for 20 minutes because neither him nor the voice guy wanted to push this little 2-seater Spider 20 feet up into a parking lot. It's honest. It's one of those things that just blows my mind. Like cars, we would push a Buick Skylark. The thing was a tank, and you'd have one guy in a flip flop pushing in neutral down an icy road because we at least made the attempt. Not anymore. So, our traffic shuts down too with broken down cars.
Well, those struggles made for great memories for sure. My first vehicle was a 1984 Jetta that the alternator was gone. So for the first several months, I couldn't afford to change anything of it. I got a deal on it, and I started that thing and had to, park on hills just so that I could pop it into first.
My brother did the same thing with his Dodge Omni because his battery was dead. So he would park it so he could jump start it and run it off the alternator.
Beautiful days.
Oh, it's so funny. Growing up, poor in Kentucky and Ohio, and as I went to school out in California for computers, my dream car was a Volkswagen Jetta. I'm like, ooh, it's a poor man's BMW. It's a poor man's Mercedes. Right. Fast forward, I'm like 35, man, no lady. She's like, we're getting our first new car. I was like, what kind of car do you want? I don't know. Let's go look at Jettas. We're on our 3rd one now. Sadly, it's our last one. All 3 of our Jettas are 2008, our 2012, and our 2018. I've replaced radios in all 3 of them. My 2008, as soon as I paid off, the AC went up. The one I have now, the lease is just up 40,000 miles. The heated seat has already gone out. The radio's been replaced twice. The backup camera's not working now. The AC recirculator just shuts off after 2 miles here in Florida, which isn't good. I'm like, the thing has 40,000. It's basically brand new. So I've lost complete faith in Volkswagen. But I didn't bring you on here to slam on Volkswagen. It's just I'm a Volkswagen guy. I'm a Volkswagen Toyota guy. I'm very brand loyal, and so it hurts me when I have to turn my back on one, especially Volkswagen. But let me ask you this. I know, and people who watch your TikToks, skateboarding, snowboarding, and punk rock music plays a big part in your life, but a lot of people wouldn't think, with the exception of snowboarding, which really didn't come into its high days until early 2000s. Where does a boy shuffling around, following his hockey coach in Canada, pick up on skateboarding and punk rock? I can't imagine, especially back in the 90s. Nowadays, it's a whole different story. Every town has a skate park. But when we were growing up, it was getting ran out of parking lots, parking garages, having the police line you up, and because they think you're up to no good, they think you got drugs on you. How did you get into the punk music and skateboard world in the 80s and 90s going around Canada?
Yeah, so like I said, my dad took a job with Hockey Canada in 1990, which moved us from Winnipeg to the headquarters of Hockey Canada at the time, and still is in Calgary, Alberta. And just, serendipitously, Calgary was also the unofficial headquarters for snowboarding at that time. 2 brothers, Ken and Dave Achenbach, owned the world's first snowboard-only snowboard shop. There was other shops that, ski shops and what have you that carried snowboards, but they were the first core snowboard shop, I believe, in the world. And Ken went on to open up the summer camp for snowboarding on the Whistler Glacier a couple years later. And just that Calgary was still a small town at the time, a city, but um, to have something that new kind of in your backyard, and growing up as a hockey kid, hockey was so established at the time, and for me, it was just part of everyday life that it lost a little bit of its flair, and maybe I didn't even know until I saw some goofy haired kids at the local ski hill, and it was just something that I was so attracted to because it was just so out of left field from my everyday life, and like I said, it was right there. So I was fortunate enough that I got my hands on a snowboard, got my hands on a skateboard, much to my parents' chagrin, got my hands on some early punk rock tapes. And
I bet you can name the deck, the trucks you had, whether or not you had fat riser pads or skinny ones, and what brand bearings you had, because you grew up in the 90s, so I know they were German bearings. You probably didn't have Bones Brigade yet. But every one of them.
Yeah, you know what? Everything I got from, if I ever needed a hockey stick or skates or anything, it was, whatever was top of the line and brand new and accessible to my dad at the time, I'd have it. They had no interest in really providing me with these materials, especially for skateboarding. So literally my first deck was a Santa Cruz slick. It still had a squared tail, even though they were starting to move into the twin tip shape that we all kind of know now. Gull-wing trucks and
which, by the way, Gull-wings were borderline budget pro model skate trucks. They weren't independents. They were Gull-wing.
Yeah, well, and good rule of thumb back then, if they weren't indies, they were crap. So and my bearings, you know what? Like, I didn't even know what bearings were. It took my friends to show me how to pop them out of some roller skates wheels at a garage sale that we found. So it was very much a Frankenstein skateboard deck that I first got on top of, and fortunately, my dad did shell out for a snowboard from the snowboard shop. It was used, and you know what, the gear back then was changing every single year. So if you got a snowboard that was 2 years old at the time, your friends definitely knew, and I looked pretty goofy for the first few years out there. And it was something that really was kind of in my back pocket. I didn't throw my whole life into it until we moved to Sweden in 1992. And when we got to Sweden, the culture there, I don't know, just the kids were just so open and allowed to participate in everything. So there really wasn't these cliquey subcultures where, the hockey guys didn't skate or the skaters didn't play hockey. Really, everybody was throwing themselves into anything they could. And we did have a small local hill that actually produced a couple of relatively known pro snowboarders at the time in Fred and Magnus Sterner. And I played with their younger cousin and son, brother, Stefan Sterner, in hockey. And, again, like, I just, for whatever reason, I had these influences at my fingertips in this very alternative from hockey activity. Yeah. And, I had some decent, natural athletic ability, and I was able to progress somewhat quickly in both those sports.
Well, it's funny because I started skating in second grade. Some of the older kids in my neighborhood I got a hold of Vision Streetwear. Oh, I forget which videotape it was. It was the one that had Christian Soy doing the King Air contest. Now, for those of you at home, I'm not making fun of the man for having Gull-wing trucks. I'm laughing because my first pro model board was the Steve Caballero White Dragon with Gull-wing trucks, German bearings. Because back in the day, there was two bearing companies. There were German bearings or Swiss bearings. That was it. There wasn't a Bones. There wasn't Shorties. You didn't have all these different lines. It was, oh, you want German bearings. No, you want Swiss bearings. And I'm Googling it because 10 years ago, I could have told you exactly what wheels they were. I think they may have been bullet wheels. Straight line budget stuff. But yeah, Gull-wing trucks, first model. And it was the Steve Caballero Mini. It's actually when they made the mini board, because once again, I was in second grade. And so, from then on, it was, Dead Milkman, skateboarding. You're talking about, the transition from the fishtail flat nose to what we have now, the the double-ended boards. Do you remember one of the first models to make that change?
Well, I believe it's credited to Mike Vallely. Mike Vallely. When we grew up, there wasn't podcasts, so whatever a skater's name was in a magazine, it was however you read it.
However you read it in Thrasher or Transworld.
That's right. And there was a whole generation of us that read it as Mike Vallely.
Now, I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying, yeah, he came onto the 9 Club a year or two ago, another podcast, and corrected pretty much the whole skate world and said, no, my name is Mike Vallely. And listeners might know him from CKY2, and he's the guy that messed up 4 guys in the parking lot that were picking fights with skaters.
Do you remember the old Omar Hassan video where he had the broken arm and he was in a parking lot and these guys, he took out 4 guys with a broken arm? Omar Hassan is the only skateboarder who got Thrasher Skate of the Year 3 years in a row and had a broken arm in every damn photo because he just kept breaking that. When I lived in Columbus, he came through Dodge Skate Park a few times and that boy could shred.
Yeah.
But
he took switch skateboarding to really from its very basics to a whole new level that very few people could touch for years.
I don't know if it was great marketing, if there's any truth to it, but do you remember the Vision Double Deck?
I don't. That was probably before my time. Vision, and if you pull this out, I'm going to be psyched.
This is an original. This isn't the new reprint. This is. When I was in 3rd grade, this board came out. This wasn't mine. I didn't have Vision Double Deck money. I had 8th Street money. And in the 90s, I was riding Beer City. But right around the time I graduated, the guy I went to school with since 2nd grade who lived in the neighborhood where I started skateboarding bought this at a yard sale, complete. And then when at the time, I'm 6'5", I was 175 pounds. But for the younger audience in the 90s, skateboarding was at an all-time low. No one was skating. If you were skateboarding, people just assumed you were a drug addict or into bad things. We didn't have skate parks everywhere, as we said at the beginning. People just thought you were a ne'er-do-well. And so I don't know if it's conspiracy. I don't know if they did it kind of like automotive companies do, wear and tear parts. But skateboard decks got super flimsy in the 90s. Now, some of them can say, we wanted to make them lighter so you can do your double varial kickflips easier. No, they were breaking. And you'd go out and you would step through a board quickly. So when my buddy Terry showed up with this, I borrowed it. It had full-size independent trucks on, which you can't find hangers that wide anymore. You're lucky to find, I'm sure they're reprinting them now, but I actually looked to outfit this in about 2012, and I could not find hangers wide enough. But I started skating this because it held my big 6'5" ass frame, and my feet didn't hang over it, and I could still do, as you can see, the nose slides, the tail slides, and all that stuff, and not sit there and break boards every other day. Sadly, I let my brother's friend borrow that, and he never returned it. And then I found it 2 years later in my buddy's basement, stripped down. So he basically borrowed it, stole all the trucks and wheels off of it, and left it in my buddy's basement. But yes, I do have an original, I want to say 1987, 1989 Vision Double Deck.
Yeah, it's hard to understate how massive Vision was at the time too, and as a metaphor for how much skateboarding changed in such a short period of time. Fast forward a few years, and a company that was made almost purely in contrast to Vision was Blind Skateboards, owned by Steve Rocco.
Yep.
And when Blind Video Days with Mark Gonzalez and future movie star Jason Lee came out, holy shit, that just changed the way that we all perceived skateboarding and what was capable on a skateboard. And then shortly a year or two after that, Plan B dropped 2 videos that just made Blind Video Days look like it was ancient material. It's
well, because before all that came out, before everybody was doing the kick flips, the heel slides, and all that stuff, the biggest, craziest thing we'd see is Natas Kappas doing a 360 off the top of a fire hydrant. I mean, that was the craziest trick we saw. And then fast forward to the 90s, real small wheels so that you can land these crazy tricks and your boards don't go rocketing out from underneath you. So the boards got thinner, they got lighter, and the wheels got super small. They're almost barely bigger than the diameter of the bearings that they were in, especially after they wore down. It was crazy. But and so you got into the skate world, and then obviously having access to some of the best freaking ski resorts in the Western Hemisphere, snowboarding started to develop, and you got into that, which the transition is very much the same. Carving's a little closer to surfing, but I mean, if you could skateboard, you spent a week and a half on a snowboard. Don't plan to do anything else because you won't be able to walk after day 2. But it was the world, as far as the camaraderie and the whole environment of snowboarding and skateboarding, went hand in hand. When I got my first 1993 Burton snowboard in Ohio, we actually had to call to the ski resorts to see if they even allowed you on there, because most of them, snowboarders were bad. They were, connotation. Yes. So maybe 1 out of the 6 resorts in Ohio and Kentucky would actually allow you to take your stuff there. And so when I started, you go to the hill, you may see 50 snowboarders and like 300 skiers. Now it's completely flip-flopped.
Yeah, boy, at the time, and skateboarding really saved snowboarding. There was a time in the 80s there where, other than Terry Kidwell, snowboarding was pretty goofy. We had the Santa Claus toques and the neon, and Damian Sanders, as incredibly talented as he was, he was really hard to look at. He had hard ski boots on and sniper narrow stance. And, it took a few guys to really adapt. Noah Slasnik came out of the skateboard world, and, he had a goofy Santa Claus toque for a couple of years, but, him and John Cardell,
not to cut you off, but for those listening at home, it was almost like people were dressing in case they got stuck in an avalanche. It was the brightest neon, most insane crap you could possibly find at the mall. And they weren't even hipsters. They weren't doing it ironically. They did it because neon was in. It was cool. It was futuristic. And so you would just see these, and they would clash. They have a neon pink jacket with a neon orange pant, and then, like you said, a neon green Santa Claus hat with a big bobber on the end. And it was the most absurd, obnoxious thing you saw coming down the hill. And then sadly, that's the way the media, cartoons, and especially commercials for kids, everything in the 80s and 90s, that if it had a board, whether it was a skateboard, a snowboard, or a surfboard, everybody talked like Spicoli from Fast Times, which is why Michelangelo talks like that, because Hollywood is lazy, and they just, from here on out, every skater, snowboarder, dude, like the walls and Mahler, telly tall, like for sure, dude, telly. And then you should, being a guy from Kentucky who was fighting a hillbilly act, it's like, I didn't know anybody talked like that. All the skaters, so to me, that made me cringe when I would see that representation on TV and in movies.
Oh, it was wild, and even, it took I think it took well until the 2000s for mainstream media to cover even the shape of skateboards and snowboards to a relatively contemporary style. Bart Simpson was on a squared tail. He probably still is. And I haven't watched an episode of The Simpsons in forever, but I think it was pretty easy to make fun of how whack that style really was. And we, ultimately, I think that the European riders were the last to transition. And we just called it Euro style through the early
Euro
90s. But, it really was the skateboarders that not only saved, snowboarding and turned it into what it was, in not only tricks, but dress and, everything became the opposite. Like if you're going to wear that tight neon stuff, then we're going to wear as big of black pants as we can. We're going to wear big plaid shirts.
Or even Burton went streamlined.
We're going to dress like a skier. We're going to make fun of skiers. And, you can't go back to those days. It was something very unique. But also, we were, like you said, we weren't allowed at every ski resort. And there was almost this like instinctual crossover of the mainstream to treat us like police treated skateboarders in those early days. So
And I had
again, it was part of the fun.
And for those you watch on YouTube, I had a camcorder that was bigger than this keyboard. And so when we would snowboard down the hill, you were doing one of these jobs because it literally had a full-size VHS tape in it. Or if you were real cool and real confident, you would zoom all the way out and you'd hold it by the handle and do it like the pro skaters did, and you hold it down by your hip. But we didn't have GoPros. And the battery life on that thing was maybe 20 minutes on a good day. And so it was hard to even produce skate videos and snowboard videos back then. But real quick before we transition into the main reason why you're on here.
Yes.
I've always said, like, if I was going to be a professor, like in a marketing class, or teach up-and-comers about marketing and what not to do, Airwalk would be my keynote on how to turn your back against your demographic and watch your company just die.
They had the industry and, you know, us as kids, they had our full attention.
They were the Nike of skateboarding world. They were named after a skateboarding move. At the time, you either had Vision Streetwears, Vans, or Airwalks, and that was it.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, it's actually by the time I was in grade 8, Vans they couldn't be less cool. Nobody really rocked them until Jeff Rowley brought them back from the dead. Maybe in the late 90s, but Airwalk, you know who I credit
to. I want to stand a Vans real quick. You know who I credit to the mainstream popularity of Vans outside of the skateboard world? Big Bang Theory. The set producers and the wardrobe said, okay, we got a group of nerds, and this is before nerds were cool. We need to dress them outlandish. So they put them in bright red skinny jeans. Vans had these bright red, goofy, silly looking shoes. And so you had this entire generation who grew up watching these great guys on Big Bang Theory. And that's why Comic-Con blew up. That's why Vans blew up. That's why skinny jeans, because these kids were looking up to what our generation, the set producers and the writers, made up to be, you know, nerds or scientists. And these kids look at them like they're heroes. And I believe that's why Comic-Con's as big as it is. That's why Vans are as big as they are. And that's why there was a period of dressing weird and wear skinny pants, because they were all dressing like Howard from Big Bang Theory. And to this day, I credit them for the nerd culture and the popularity in which it is now.
It took me a very long time to get rid of my massive jeans. I was well into my 20s wearing very big pants.
Well, the other thing I'm resentful for about that is the skateboarders, at least in the 90s, we were all just going to thrift stores. I was a size 28. I look like a heroin addict, but I was buying 35 waist pants, and I was cinching them back, and they're super big, and I was cutting them off. And then here comes mainstream pop culture. Oh, look what the skate kids are doing. Jinko. And so everybody credits Jinko. No, Jinko was just ripping off the skateboard kids who were going to the thrift store and buying pants for $2 that were too big for them. And so it's amazing how much of pop culture, at least in the late 90s, early 2000s, the skate culture created, even though people didn't want to admit it because they looked down on us so much.
Yeah, well, and again, like you look at how quickly MTV had a massive hit with the Jackass series.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you know, with Tremaine and Pontius, and those guys were all from Big Brother magazine, right? And Dave England, you know, he was pro snowboarder when I was a kid. I didn't think he was going to end up doing podcasts and being, you know, well recognized by the mainstream.
CKY2K.
It's absolutely wild.
Real quick, back to my Airwalk thing for the people who don't know what I'm talking about. Airwalk was a skate shoe. It was it was developed around, it was the go-to skateboarding shoe. But as I said earlier, in the 90s, skateboarding was dying. The money was being lost. And so somebody over at Airwalk said, hey, extreme is the new catchphrase. Everything's about base jumping. It's about base jumping, surfing, bungee jumping is a big thing. And so Airwalk changed their whole scheme. They dropped skateboarding for every advertising. They dropped the word skateboarding from their shoe in the catalogs, and all their footage was base jumping, bungee jumping, surfing. You don't need to wear shoes when you surf, but they went down that whole thing. And I remember I was at Sun Sports. Sun Sports was like the local mom and pop shop. They had like 4 or 5 shops in a skate park in Columbus, indoor skate park, which was unheard of back then. I remember Nick, who ran the Dublin store, came up to us and said, would you guys care if we stopped carrying Airwalk products? We're like, no, they turned their back on skateboarding 2 years ago. And everybody across the industry did that now, where before they closed, the only place you could find Airwalks to this day was Payless Shoes, because they literally turned their back on being like the Nike of the skateboard industry, because there was a rough patch in the 90s. And at least at the time, even when Vans blew up and you saw them in Sears catalog, they still said Vans skateboarding shoes. They never lost their way and they never dropped skateboarding. And the skateboarding community has always appreciated them for that. Unlike DC Shoe, when Nike bought them out, now they're just, whatever shoe.
Yeah, you know what? And speaking of Nike, while I have this platform right now,
please, I'm an Adidas guy.
I was gone. And we'll get into this later, but I was wasted for a few years, and I don't know when Nike got accepted by the skateboard culture of kids. But when I was growing up, there was actually the best thing Nike did in the 90s, or maybe it was the early 2000s. I think it was late 90s, and it was a university student, marketing student out of University of Alberta, I believe, in Edmonton, who came up with the commercial ideology for Nike. And it was, what if, and by all means, listeners, YouTube this, Nike, what if we treated all athletes like we treat our skateboarders?
I'm not aware of this. I'll have to look it up.
Check it out.
I'll include I'll find it, and when I post this on the fail2fail.com, I'll include the videos underneath the video link for this. So you guys get a fail2fail.com or d-410.com, and we'll link the videos up there. But go ahead.
Please check it out. It's fantastically funny and clever. But even with commercial as clever as that, it still took another 10 or 15 years for Nike to really be accepted by skateboarding and by snowboarding for that matter, and it's a hard pill for me to swallow after supporting all these small brands throughout my glory days of both sports. Now particularly snowboarding, it's all shoe companies, ski companies, racket like Yonex
remember when you wanted
snowboard coverage than any other snowboard company these days in the half pipe, and it's mind-blowing to me, but you can't stop progression.
Remember when you wanted to throw up in your mouth when you found out that K2 made their first snowboard?
Oh, dude, you know what? And I ride a K2 reissue Daniel Frank Pro model right now, much to my chagrin. But when I was a kid, I wanted that board so bad, especially it was dropped when I was living in Scandinavia. And I didn't have the personal income to invest in it at the time. So I got stuck with a Kemper that I sawed the nose off of to make it look like that board.
I was thinking about this the other day. I can understand why people would frown upon quote unquote gatekeeping. And I understand, hey, when it comes to music or movies or whatever, live and let live. But the reason Gen Xers are such gatekeepers when it comes to certain things like skateboarding or snowboarding or punk music or underground hip hop is because we caught such a truckload of bullshit from every other kid in the school who thought you were a fucking nerd because you skateboarded. Or I remember I was in 7th grade because my brother's 4 years older than me. We lived in Columbus, right downstream OSU campus. Long before Downward Spiral came out, right around when Pretty Hate Machine, I wore a shirt with a big orange N on the front that stood it was the cover of Nine Inch Nails' Broken album. What's that N stand for? Nerd. People just tearing me in, wearing Red Hot Chili Pepper shirts from Uplift Mojo Party Pan, Freaky Style. Oh, Red Hot, what the hell? Getting just lambasted by an entire middle school. 2.5 years later, Under the Bridge came out. Everybody's singing Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Downward Spiral came out. It's like, I get it. You guys like the band that I like, and I'm not gatekeeping because I'm mad they sold out. I'm gatekeeping because you were the same pricks who were damn near running me out of school for wearing a goddamn T-shirt. And that's why a lot of us are still, even in our 40s, sometimes we're not as bad as we are, but especially now you're just seeing all these kids walking around these 70s, 80s, and 90s band shirts, honestly. Just name one song, but... They won't because they can't. But no, and that's why you'll run into Gen Xers who are still kind of gatekeepers this day, just because we cut such a rash of shit for the stuff we did or listened to. And then 20 years later, when it became socially acceptable, it's like, well, where's my pound of flesh? Because I sure took an ass whooping for it.
Yeah, well, and we also, we had insight into, it was just a great period in between the, how kind of disgusting and monetarily focused the 80s were, and then as the late 90s came in and MTV was really pushing these boy bands, and Britney Spears, and nothing against them. Everyone, they all did great at what they did, but there really was that dark period of time in the early 90s into the late 90s where, if you were into those things, punk rock, skateboarding, and snowboarding, and were deeply obsessed with them, you had this insight into this world that just nobody really was able to tap into or understand. And then, and Terry Hawkinson, who was, our Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan of snowboarding at the time, he said it. He said the Olympics in 1998 were going to destroy snowboarding as we knew it, and it did. And you could see kind of the cracks in our protection kind of start opening up. And lo and behold, it's skateboarding's an Olympic sport now, and all the power to it. Those the few athletes that do get paid deserve to get paid, and those they have to be on that world-class platform to be able to achieve that. But like I said, it was something very special that not very many of us, yes, there was millions of us, but really on a massive scale, there was very few people that
were almost 2%
at the time, right?
Well, and so I started skating, I skateboarded for 18 years, snowboarded for 17 years. I basically gave up both when I turned 22. Well, snowboarding I gave up later. I left from Ohio to California in 2001, and that was a dream come true to me, because growing up in Ohio skateboarding, what do you want to do? I want to live in California. So sadly, I had stopped skating by then, but I was still snowboarding. So I went up to Big Bear and I went to Mountain High, and then I found out, hey, I'm probably going to be moving to Florida. Well, shit. There goes my snowboarding days. And so I went snowboarding at Mountain High like every night after work. I worked in La Habra, California. We drive up outside of Pomona where Mountain High was. Here's how long it's been since I've snowboarded. My last pro model deck was the Jim Rippey. I think this was a 2001, 2002 Jim Rippey.
Does it have a sparkly top sheet?
Yep. With the koi fish.
Yes.
That board was hard to come by, because in Ohio the year before, that Jim Rippey model sold out because he was the first one to do backflips off of mountains. And his pro model sold out everywhere. You cannot find it. So the following year when that came out, I was on a waiting list. And talk about an interesting turn of events for him, the way he went in his life. But Jim Rippey was huge at the time.
Yeah, and Jim Rippey, he was kind of like the Bob Burnquist of snowboarding, where he was the first one to really take that, I'm not just a board athlete, I'm going to jump out of the planes and
double backflips and all that stuff.
And you mentioned Jim Rippey and the backflip. Well, Jim Rippey was the first person to ever do a backflip on skidoo. It wasn't a pro slider.
Yes. Full size.
It really, when I saw that, I think that it was Standard Films TV7 or TV8. Mm-hmm. And this was in a time when premieres for snowboard videos, you'd wait 12 months to see the new snowboard video and see what the hell everyone had been doing for the past 12 months. It wasn't YouTube culture of every day.
No, we all had a VHS library in our house.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody could tell you what their favorite video was at that time. I mean, yeah.
It was gnarly, for sure. And, there was the Mac Dog versus Standard Film kind of battles that we'd have. And, but back in Banff, where I was living in the late 90s, the Wild Bill's was basically the bar there that would host the snowboard premieres. And, their SNFU would play before they dropped the movie. And then the movie had come out, and there'd be fucking 500 of us crammed into this sweaty bar, cheering a TV screen, and it's just it's something that just seems so outlandish nowadays. It would just never happen. But this was happening in ski tourist town pockets all across the world at the time. Basically within the same week, because these movies would come out basically on a schedule every September, something like that at the time.
And the female pro snowboarder community was
Victoria
super
jealous.
I was going to say, picture this. 16-year-old Don, junior in high school, Sun Sports, Dublin, Ohio, meet and greet, autograph with Victoria Jelly Lewis. I still have So, I mean, the one of the few, and she was easy on the eyes. And being a young high school boy, I still have her autograph in here. I actually got to meet her at Sunsport Skate Shop where I bought my snowboards because she was there doing autograph signings. It was like the first celebrity I'd ever met, and I still have her autograph.
Her style, especially free riding, was just unbelievable. Just so natural. Morgan Lafont, sorry, I'm going to leave out a few, but Carabeth Burnside, who came out from skateboarding and skating bowls, really is the only pro female skater, I think, in the early 90s. Tina Bassich was fantastic at the time. And then really when Tara Dakitas dropped, she was it technical difficulties, and she shared a part maybe with Kevin Jones. And she was jumping on rails and actually backflipped off this up rail. Yeah. And board slid off this little step down cliffer. And, she had a pretty short-lived career. I think her career ended like doing a big air stunt or something on David Letterman in downtown New York City, only like 10 years later. And it was super unfortunate, but she really opened up female snowboarding single-handedly. To where it is now.
Plus, back then, they were doing stuff on snowboards that boards weren't designed per se to do. I mean, it was easy to blow out an edge doing handrails back then, and not being careful with how you're riding. And as time went on and computer development came out, they fine-tuned them more to depending on what style now you don't just buy an all-around board. Back in the day, I'm going to buy something that's not super long, not super short. It's an all-around board because I can only afford one. And now it's, your slope style, here's a line for you. Oh, you're doing park, here's a line for you. Oh, you're doing, power riding, here's a line for you. The boards are actually designed for whatever type of riding you're doing, which back then we all kind of had universal boards, and it was, let's see what we can make a son of a bitch do.
Yeah, that's just it, right? And, the pioneers of the jib segment, if you will, or rail sliding segment of snowboarding, it was cool to us, but you want to talk about gatekeepers. Well, the older gatekeepers of snowboarding had, number one, they're scared to do it, or just they didn't grow up jumping on handrails, but they were not down. And you get these like urban myths going, oh dude, you can't slide further than 50 feet because then the edge is going to start peeling off the board because it gets too hot, and all this bullshit that they kept feeding us. But me and the crew in Banff and in Calgary, saved like a couple guys that are a couple years older than us and really set the ground in that area. We're really some of the first ones jumping on the handrails, and we didn't have bungee cords. We had literally packed snow in the back of like our one buddy's truck and have like an old door that somebody ripped off of their rental house's living room, and we'd use that as a bank to go into these handrails. And at the time it was just like, who can get down this fucking thing? Like, how many tricks do you have on it? It was just like whatever it takes for you to get to the bottom.
It was the snow equivalent of what we did. Well, hey, grab a truck, we're going to steal these 3 parking blocks, and there's a old lamppost over there, let's go make a handrail somewhere. It was the same thing but on snow.
It was fantastic, actually. I loved it. Those were some of the best days. And we'd be out there 2 a.m. high on Tim Hortons coffee. And the cops would give us tickets for stunting, which just absolutely hilarious. But again, to see what that turned into, Nixon watches and their Jib Fest era and all that really had a lot of participation in the growth of it, and the whole forum team and that whole MacDog side of things for sure. But it's a beautiful thing.
Have you seen the documentary on Netflix called The River Runner?
No.
Watch it. It's about kayaking, but it's about basically the bad boy of kayaking from the 90s, and how him and all his guys, he made a film company. They're basically making snowboard and skateboard equivalent videos in the kayaking realm. And it's about him now. Now he's in his 40s and his last goal in life. But they're showing this footage, and I'm telling you, you're going to feel like you just got done watching a skate video. Even though it's about kayaking, it has that same footage, that same music style, that whole lifestyle is there. And not only that, it's just a damn great and sad documentary. So check it out. Even if you're not into kayaking, just watching this thing, you'll get throwback memories to the old skate videos and all that you used to watch. And as we all did, we all got older. We all packed on weight and had lifestyle changes. And so that's what I want to get to next. But first, I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Fail to Fail podcast. If you want to help out what we're doing here and what we do over at Digital 410 Media, please head over to failtofail.com or even d-410.com. That's a hyphen, a dash, if you will. And click on that Patreon link. You can sign up. It only costs you $1 a month. There's some other plans on there, but we don't care about that. We'll be happy with just your $1 a month, and that goes to pay for our online streaming service that allows us to stream to all the multiple platforms like we're doing right now, web hosting and all that stuff. So go like, subscribe, sign up to $1 a month, and while you're there, please click on that YouTube link. Go like and subscribe our YouTube channel where you can see all our live stream videos, fishing videos, World War II content, and the like. And now that we got all the plugs out of the way, was there a period that skateboarding just fell out of your lifestyle and what you're doing like it does most of us?
Yeah, and to, not rewind again, but some of the very first core skate snow videos that, myself and my peers grew up with, they were called Whiskey. It was the Whiskey series.
I think I had Whiskey 3. Yeah.
I think even 4, Todd Bowman, The Party's Over, it might have been called. Anyways.
Which one was the one where they had the old beat up Nova and they were running over street signs and he's like, it's just a giant skateboard bumper car to me, man. I remember we were watching, my dad walked in and was like, what the fuck are you guys watching?
Yeah, it was essentially the Canadian Jackass about 5 years before Jackass. And, it was more breaking beer bottles over your head and puking than skateboarding and snowboarding. And, for me, when those dropped, I was too young to really understand how gnarly it was as far as lifestyle choices of the people we were watching. And we glorified it for sure. And when number 2 and 3 came out, I was playing hockey in Saskatchewan with future NHLers like Brad Richards and Vince LeCavalier. And for me, my head was, I need to get out of here and I need to move to Banff or Whistler and start breaking some bottles over my head so I can be a pro snowboarder. It became such a glorified aspect. So, the party part of snowboarding and skateboarding was just so massive. And I think there was just a general big binge culture in the late 90s, early 2000s, but, particularly in our sports. And, I remember in my early 20s showing up at Millennium Park in Calgary. It was maybe one of the biggest concrete parks in the world when it got built in 2000, 2001. And, I'd have 3 beers in me and have a drag of a cigarette, and I couldn't even skate. Like, it really hindered my athletic performance. And, soon I wasn't even skating. Snowboarding is fantastically easier than skateboarding on any single day. So I was able to, get by and shit. But, I was smoking an eighth of weed a day or every 2 days. I was easily drinking 6 to 10 beers. And
not to belay the point, but we're not talking about the stuff people are getting from dispensaries. We're talking about seeds and stems and straight up dirt. It was dirt.
Yeah,
that's all you can find was dirt.
It was before strains. It was before indica or sativa. It was before I wouldn't know what CBD was for another 20 years. So this was just like purely, no culture. I smoked as much weed in my Jetta as I could to make sure that everybody around me knew that I was reeking of weed, because I just associated it with those cultures, especially stepping outside of hockey as soon as I graduated. Whether that was a choice of mine or not, I suffered a significant head injury in my senior year of high school by, again, another future NHLer, Jarrett Stoll, caught me with a hell of a hit to the head. And really, at the time, Paul Correa and Eric Lindros had just been knocked out of hockey with their concussions. And everyone was kind of freaked out about letting me pursue my hockey career as well as me. But I kind of took that as an excuse to walk away from hockey. And, I could compete in snowboarding, and there was no doctors or anybody to tell me I couldn't. There was no team management or anything like that. So at the time, it's crazy to think in hindsight that after a severe head injury, I used that as an excuse to drink myself and smoke myself into stupors on a very chronic basis. But to me, again, it was part of the dark aspect of the culture that I just really wanted to be a part of. And really, it was what I saw, the people that I looked up to at the time doing. So, coming from, like I said, a very conservative prairie hockey family, all I wanted to do was be a stoner in the mountains, hucking 5s and 7s. And, and I was able to accomplish that. But, in hindsight, talk about having some low fucking expectations of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really, I went full head deep into the party aspect of snowboarding and skateboarding. Until, like I said, I couldn't even skate anymore, nor had a desire to. Skateboarding was progressing so fantastically fast at that time too. So every single year it was just like, it's never going to get bigger than this. It's never going to get gnarlier than this. And sure enough, as it always does, it did. And with snowboarding, the wheels are attached to your feet, so I was able to fake it. But weed and booze turned into booze and hard drugs. And like I woke up at 26, 27, and I hadn't even been snowboarding for a couple of years at that point. I started working for Red Bull in that time as a sales rep in the Banff tourist town area as well. And all my friends were local Banff guys. A couple of them had opened up bars, and the others had been managing in bars then. And so, no line, no cover, free drinks, free food.
It's like playing in a band without playing in the band.
Exactly, right. It was very high profile, and it was like living the high school life for a decade in my 20s that I didn't really get to experience because I was so focused on hockey in the mid 90s there.
Yeah, for me it was after high school. A buddy of mine had a band, and I was a shitty bass player and a decent songwriter and a horrible singer, but did that for years. So the skateboarding thing, just women, rock and roll, party, and that was what it was all about until I moved to California. And that's where a lot of people go that way. It's just like, skateboarding is something I did in high school. It's something I did in my late teens, but I'm moving on to this thing now. And some people would keep it behind the bench seat of their truck and maybe bust out every once in a while, but it just got fewer and fewer and fewer, more and more far between. And plus, by that time, when you're riding dirty per se, you don't want to be out participating in parking lots where an annoyed officer might find something on you that's going to turn your skate session into a bigger deal. So why risk it when you can just go home and watch some TV and sit on your couch and burn one down?
Yeah, that's just it, right? And and especially in tourist towns, in ski tourist towns, like Banff is just, everyone lived like a short walk away. You never had to get into a car. Half our friends at Rude Boys didn't even get their driver's licenses ever in their adult lives, because why would you, right? And it was such an easy, from my apartment window, I'd try to go to bed at 10 p.m. like a sensible time. And if I didn't fall asleep right away, I could look out my window and I could see who was bartending at 3 different bars: Bruno's, Devil's Gap, Wild Bill's, the Rosencrantz. 4 bars. I could see who was bartending and go, oh fuck, I'll get free drinks there right now in 5 minutes. And I was out of bed and on my way. And that.
You're talking about. I just had a thought. You're talking about that culture and just everything, and I just had a thought. It's so funny we hear this phrase, free roam children. Oh, you guys were free roam children. I was such a free roam child that I lived in Columbus, Ohio. My brother was living in Big Sky, Montana, making omelets in the morning and skateboarding all day. My dad, for Christmas vacation, bought me a Greyhound ticket at the age of 17. My sister went out and got me that snowboard the night before because I blew the rails out of my 93 Burton. how many people today would put their 17-year-old kid on a Greyhound bus to go 5 states over to go visit his brother? So I got stuck in North Dakota during the blizzard of 1997 because we got off the interstate and couldn't get back on. And so Greyhound had to flip rooms for us, and it was looked like a brothel from the 1800s. Like it had a communal bathroom on each floor, and the rest is just like single room hotels. Anyhow, the reason I bring this up is we're talking about the lifestyle and all that, and this reminded me. Gen Xers are so into the you don't snitch on your boys. My brother worked at the ski resort. He was an omelet cook. I was there for a week. My lift pass expired my last day there. My brother wakes me up. Come on, we're going riding. Can't do, my lift ticket's expired, and I got to catch the bus in 5 hours, get down to the Greyhound. Don't worry, Eric's working the chairlift. Are you sure? Yeah, Eric's working the chairlift. Go down there. Yeah, Eric's working the chairlift. They scoot me past the turnstile, make it up the goddamn mountain. Halfway down, I get pulled over by ski patrol. Some Karen reported me. You jumped the turnstile. No, I didn't. Pass it lay through. I got arrested for criminal trespassing. Now, I could have said, hey, my brother works here. Him and his buddy Eric was working the turnstiles. It got me through. No, I kept my fucking mouth shut, and I took the hit. I don't know if it's the same way it is now as it was in the 90s, but in the 90s, if you got arrested in Montana because it was such a sparse area, you could pay your bond on the spot because they knew how hard it would be for some people to have to travel 100 miles to go to court. And so my brother went around to all the employee dorms and raised like $250 for me to get bailed out so I can make it to my freaking Greyhound bus that night. And luckily, when I got back to Ohio, I had a Wendy's paycheck waiting on me so I could pay all those people back. But I didn't sell anybody out. And back to that whole 90s snowboard culture. I had the long hair down past my shoulder, the undercuts, handcuffed in my Burton green pants, my long alien workshop shirt, being escorted down Big Sky, Montana sidewalk. And all these skiers just looking at me like, yep, there goes another one. Took me in the truck, like, what do you want to do? I said, pay bail. I got a Greyhound to catch. Didn't sell anybody out, man. I just took the lick and took it. But, you know, it was such a lifestyle thing. It was, hey, your pass is expired, man, but it's a powder day. We got to go. So, okay, here we are. But thanks for getting me put in jail, Dick.
That's unbelievable. Yep. You know, that's one thing I can say. I never ended up in the drunk tank or any jail trouble.
Criminal trespassing. And you know what the bitch of it was is when I was in the main office and they're waiting for the cops, ski patrol coming in. Oh, so-and-so lift got hit by lightning last night. I was like, see, I told you the lift let me through. I told you it was a malfunction because they're like replacing parts. Like, no, that lift worked just fine. Like, son of a bitch. I had to call my mom. Call my dad. Yeah, I'm getting arrested, by the way, because I was 18 at that point. So no, I was 17. Yeah, no, I just turned 18. I turned 18 my senior year of high school. So, but yeah, I got arrested for criminal trespassing in Montana because my brother wanted to go snowboarding one extra day.
That's wild. Yeah, Montana's it's wild country out there.
And so you've given it up. You're living that hard lifestyle, and with whiskey and booze and cigarettes comes bad eating and just comes bad lifestyle altogether, man.
Yeah, you know, boy, and like I said, you know, everyone worked at the pub, so, and you know, I didn't have the knowledge nor cared to listen to any, you know, local hippie about nutrition. So, I was eating beef dips and burgers and pizza, and you know, I literally like gas station sandwiches because it was cheap. Whatever we could shove into our bodies before we did a whole bunch of blow for the, you know, remainder of the day and into the next day. So it was, at the time, like I thought it was the greatest lifestyle in the world.
Fast metabolism, things are going good,
and it catches up to you for sure. And you know, there's
right around 35. Right around 35 is when it all catches up to you. Next thing you know, you're shopping for a size 38 pant. And you're like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I blew up. So I knew I had to get out of Banff. And it was, at 31, my dad was, you know, he had accomplished so much and in his hockey career, and he took a job. Steve Yzerman became the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Yzerman wanted my old man to come join the coaching staff there, and he went down there, and it was almost like a retirement gig for him. It was going to be his last few years, I really think, and in the first playoffs that year, he had a headache, and they got him into the hospital, through the Lightning connections or whatever, and they had a quick biopsy, and he had a brain tumor. And,
oh shit!
He unfortunately passed away within 24 months of that, finding that out, and it was so devastating, the news that he got this terminal cancer. It was right at the same time, one of my best friends and snowboard idols, Pete Nevin, he was fighting a brain tumor as well. It was coming and going, and he had surgery, and it was corrected and gone, and then it came back, and Pete ended up dying at like 42, I think, only like 6 months after my dad died. And it was overwhelming, and I left Banff and took a job with Sleeman Breweries, who I'm employed by still to this day.
Not to cut you off, but that's got to be so hard, because I went through a similar issue where my uncle was in the hospital. He had a pulmonary embolism in his brain. My cousin came down to see him on life support. My stepmom got up to clean the house for him. 2 hours later, she's on life support because she had a embolism in her lung. And so I know, to go through that it's when you lose a parent, that is life-changing. But you still somewhat have that age difference. But to go through that and then have someone of your contemporary go through the same thing, that's really when you open your eyes and start to think, okay, that guy was my age. We live the same lifestyle. Maybe I need to reevaluate.
Yeah, it was gnarly. Unfortunately for me, and Pete was he was kind of a generation above me. I think he was 4 or 5 years older than me. But he it sent, both those deaths sent me into an already, from a bad situation into an already more vicious spiral down. And I left Red Bull after 8 years and became a beer rep out on Vancouver Island. So as soon as I get there, I'm emotionally devastated. I'm out of shape. I'm years into drug abuse and poor nutrition, and very, very much gone from the athletic teenager that I was as a hockey player, pursuing that career. So, I show up on Vancouver Island not knowing anybody, and I've got this beer MasterCard, free beer. Beer's literally cheaper than water for me. Any pub that serves my beer, I can eat there for free. So it's just beef dips, French fries, hamburgers, whatever. And I ballooned up to 245 pounds at my peak, and basically stayed there for most of my 30s. And I made some really great friends out there. Unfortunately, they enjoyed the same
lifestyle,
late night leisures as me. They weren't snowboarders or skateboarders. They were all musicians, but and very grounded people, but same vices as I had,
same community.
And so it followed me there. And it wasn't until my wife and I had our son Hugo that after being there for a year, and I thought that having a son would change me immediately, and it really didn't. So after being there for a year, I just was like, fuck, dude, like I can't be here, just like I couldn't be in Banff. And we were pretty isolated out there from family. My wife Brendine's family were all in Regina. She's got these just salt of the earth parents, prairie parents with just fantastic values and just kind hearts. And it felt like a crime keeping our son away from their influence and keeping me in the influences that were around me. So, my wife didn't want to come back to the winters of the prairies. but that was part of that grown-up sacrifice that we were willing to make to give our son a better life. And we got here. I showed up in late December 2019. Brandine and Hugo showed up in I think early January, something like that. And then we stayed at our parents' house while we looked for a house to buy out here. And we took possession of our house February 15th that year. And as we all know, March 15th was basically the first lockdown, I believe, maybe March 13th. So
I want to pause. I want to pause right there real quick, before we go too far over something you said. A lot of people, this gets, people recognize this in college athletes who are football players or swimmers, but to go from being something, I'm a skateboarder, I'm a hockey player, I'm a snowboarder, I'm in a band, to go from being something when your entire identity is based around being something to all of a sudden just being Joe Schmo, that it does have an impact on people. You miss the skateboarding, and not just the skateboarding, but being a skateboarder or being a snowboarder or, once again, a football player. And so people, they'll notice that next college athletes, but it doesn't matter even if you did, off the grid sports like that, going from being a something to just being a regular Joe, it can impact you sometimes.
Yeah. I still really don't know anybody out here. If anybody that watches my TikToks, it's just I prop my camera up against my backpack and it's just me out there, right?
Solo sport.
It's just but we got here and COVID lockdowns happened almost immediately, and even when we got here, I was drinking 10 to 15 beers a day, a bag of Ripple chips for dinner, and just in a very unhealthy position physically and mentally, super dark. And about a month into COVID, April of that year, I can't say it was an epiphany. I just decided I can't fucking do this anymore. I'm going to die if this, if I see what's happening around me, around the world, and what's going on, and this is going to kill me. And I need to be here for my son and my wife and for myself. And I remember going, okay, I'm just gonna have a few beers a day, and you know what, I never got hungover again after that day. But for the next 8 weeks, I guess, up until my 40th birthday, I had 2 beers. We had some greasy prairie pizza, and I didn't drink until camping on Canada Day long weekend. It's right before the 4th of July, July 1st. And my work had given me a bottle of champagne for my 40th birthday. And so we're camping, and around the campfire, I said, hey, let's crack this open and toast to just us and the nature around us. And I woke up with a hangover the next day, and not a big one, but just like enough to be like, this is fucking not worth it, and just it's getting silly. That was the last time I had a drink, and it's phenomenal. Again, I was always able to accomplish something that I put my mind to it, but the ripple effect of not waking up hungover or even a little bit of haze, it just domino affected. So even in my gnarliest, I was always known for somebody that woke up early, generally. And, I started waking up at 5, 6 a.m. with nothing to do. And so I had some sneakers, some like literally the only pair of non-skateboard shoes I had for like 20 years. And it was, my brother owned a skateboard shop in Calgary, at the time, and Etnies had come out with these like cross trainers, and he's like, here, have these. And so they weren't meant for running, they were meant for like pickleball or something.
Sure.
And I just threw them on, and I started running, and it wasn't pretty.
Shin splints, lower back, because
you know what, and
because of the shoes.
I've glossed over this, but I had chronic back problems from pretty much the time when my dad was diagnosed with cancer until this period. And
it's funny
to
you
the point
say,
where like we'd be on vacation in Mexico, and I'd be sleeping on the concrete floor the whole trip, and being poolside, just drinking the pain away. All like couldn't even enjoy trips and shit. So
No, it was
put
funny.
stress
I
on the
was
family
gonna
in that regard too.
I was gonna joke earlier when you're talking about, deciding that you want to quit. I was like, well, after you've pulled your back out for the third time, putting on your shoe, we've all been there. And it's crazy because I used to deal with a lot of back pain too. And so, did you maintain the running, or did you like, oh, this ain't going to work for me?
No, you know what? So I ran through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I felt comfort while I was running.
Got to get to mile three. Mile three,
And,
then your body goes numb, then you can go further.
yeah, you know what? Like, I think at that point it was like, and I don't know what the conversion is into miles, but I was doing like 2 kilometers.
Okay,
like
so 5K is 3.2 miles for us, so a little over a mile and a half.
Right. So like, I don't know, and maybe it'd take me 15 or 20 minutes to do that or something like that.
Well, no one gets up and runs a 10-minute mile. I mean, when I first started, because that was me too. I got up to 245, shot for a size 38 pant, and ended up in the hospital with 2 kidney stones because I was running a business, working in terrestrial radio, getting up at 7 in the morning, working until 7 on the radio, and then going back to work. So I was literally consuming 3 Monster Whites, a bottle of 5-Hour Energy, and 3 Mountain Dews a day for like 5 years, and I ended up in the hospital 2 2-millimeter kidney stones, and that was it for me. That was my turning point. And so the running is what started for me too. And one of the things about running that people don't think a lot of, if you have a lot on your mind and you want to process something, even if you don't run, just start walking. You will get a lot of shit sorted out in your head if you do a 3-mile run real quick.
Oh, yeah, you're dead right. And I read this. I picked up this book. I must have just been YouTubing, how to cure back pain. And there's this book that came out in 1989 by Dr. John Sarno. It's called How to Heal Back Pain. Like as obvious of a title as you could ever ask for.
Yeah.
And it's all completely mental. I'm not going to get into it. I recommend it to any listener that has struggles with back pain, sciatic, any kind of joint pain, because the lessons in this book, and it's such an easy 200-page read. I was convinced that this book, after spending thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on acupuncture, massage, I let this guy in Chinatown, Victoria, bloodlet the back of my legs. He sliced the back of my legs. He said that would help.
Was he out of leeches that day?
Dude, yeah, right. Like literally. But that's a metaphor for how far I went for trying to heal my back. By the time I was at page 185 of this book, my back was completely healed. And I remember the morning. It was September 22nd, and I early morning run. The moon's still up. It's dark out, and this song by the band Nothington came on. They're a punk band by BYO Records, and it's kind of got this emo connotations in the lyricism. And I was looking up at this full moon, and I just started sobbing mid-run, just crying uncontrollably. And when I got home, my back was fine.
Mm-hmm. You let it all out.
Since then, I've been building half pipes in my backyard. I've been shoveling for old ladies in my community. I've never had a back problem since, or even like, it's a fantastic reality, and not just like the comfort that I have and that my family has, and not having to deal with chronic back pain anymore, but the thought that life is a little bit more magical than I gave it credit for by reading a book and rethinking ideology, and understanding that I don't have everything all figured out, and that life isn't as dark as I necessarily thought it was. It uplifted my spirit. And if it wasn't for that moment, I don't know, like it gave me it was just like another reason to not drink, to stay sober, to, stay the course. And within, what did I say? My 40th birthday was June 16th. My last drink was 2 weeks after that. I was probably I'd lost significant weight in that little time. So I was probably at 210 pounds.
Yeah.
And by mid-October,
How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot even.
Okay.
And by mid-October, I was 165.
Wow, that's damn skinny. At my
so
skinniest,
it was. I became so focused on running.
That's because you got an addictive personality.
I do. So and through YouTube again, the magic of YouTube, I discovered Rich Roll, a vegan long distance runner, who was overweight alcoholic at 39, and at 43, 44, he was on the cover of Men's Health.
Wow.
And his podcast is phenomenal. And through his podcast, it actually, I think he was the first person I saw interview Andrew Huberman. I could be mistaken, but if you're not familiar with Andrew Huberman, leading neuroscientist who actually skateboarded at EMB in San Francisco with the Carroll brothers in the early 90s, but never had a skateboard career in front of him and took off in neuroscience. It's just this crazy story of synchronicity in all of our skate lives. But, you know, and all that really, like, I started creating this like YouTube world of people that inspired me. And so I would, you know, just devour information by, you know, interviews of Tom Bilyeu's, Andrew Huberman's, Rich Rolls. I started breathing with Wim Hof. I downloaded his app. Ice baths, ice showers.
You know, you're in a wormhole when the Barkley Marathon shows up as a suggested video. You're like, what the hell? Oh, when I first came across the Barkley Marathon, I was like, oh, these guys are fucking nuts. And
it's
go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? And all these things that just seemed like you know, a world away from me a year earlier. That, you know, something I would never even be interested in. Just completely glued into me. And you know, now I'm it's 2 years later, and I've got my, you know, I've completely got my life back. I can't overstate that. You know, I'm the father I want to be for my son, the husband I want to be for my wife, and, you know, the athlete I want to be. You know, I'm gonna be in my mid 40s pretty damn quick here, and I'm skateboarding at the level that I was in my early 20s. And,
well, I was going to ask you, at what point in your weight loss did you pick the deck back up and hit the streets?
So the following summer, I literally it was like the spring the next year. There's an indoor park in Regina, you know, the basement of the skateboard shop, and if you watch any of my clips, I'm a big fan of the Boneless, and
your acid drops mine.
Yeah, and I put my skate down. I did a Boneless on the quarter pipe, and I was like, holy shit, that was terrifying. But I think this is what I want to do with, you know, all this free time I have in a sober life.
Isn't it scary though that you can't forget how to ride a bike, but you can definitely forget how to fucking skateboard?
Skateboarding is a plant best watered chronically, right? So
I got on one for the first time in 20 years, and it took everything I had just to roll down the street and do a shove it. I'm like, well, I used to be semi-pro at the crap, and I've completely lost my balance. It's insane.
It's insane.
I can still ollie
really
like
tough.
a bitch, but my riding down the street balance, because my daughter moved down here and she brought a Plan B board with her. I was like, ooh, let me see that. And, you know, it took me about, I had to tighten the trucks down. She had them way too loose, but if I take it out and spend a good day on it, and which is I want to ask you, at 40 years old, how are the falls? How are you handling the falls now, man?
Again, like I credit it to the literature of this Dr. John Sarno book, and there's an old 2020. If you don't want to read the book, there's a 2020. Remember that TV show Dateline or some shit from the 90s, and it's like a half-hour episode that they did on this book in like 1996.
Wow.
And the host of the show, who has chronic back pain at the time, he says he basically lived my experience 25 years before I did. He didn't start skateboarding again or anything, but, you know, his chronic back pain came to an end. And so, like I said, it's not just the back. I really, I had really bad ankles, or at least I thought I did in the 90s. I'd be rolling them all the time. And, you know, when I rolled my ankle, I'd rest it. I'd put it up. I'd ice it. I'd baby myself. I don't do that at this point. And I heal so damn quick. I don't get injured anymore. I definitely impact hard, and I get hurt. but I'm not injured, and I've been able to skateboard relatively aggressively
Yeah.
for 2 straight years without any time off. Even through the winters, I've been skating the indoor park. So, and snowboarding as well, right? Jumping off roofs all last winter,
Yep.
and on handrails and shit. And I've taken some heaters for sure. But like I said, like, I don't know if, it's the full package of, yeah, I don't say silly shit like, oh, it hurts more now than it used to. I don't believe in that. I believe that with my nutrition and
that's what I was going to ask you. We're not dietitians, but I'm sitting here thinking, because like I got my shirt on. I've now ran 4 Savage races, 2 Rugged Maniacs. I want to do a Tough Mudder, I have the same addictive personality you have. So when I started running, actually at the time I was going to the gym twice a day. I blew out my elbow. I was afraid I was going to start gaining my weight back. At the time, I couldn't do a faster than a 13-minute mile on the treadmill because the treadmill was too hard. And I started running outside. Next thing I know, I'm running 7 miles a day just for fun. I'm going out running 12 miles on a weekend. But that 6 years later, and like right now, my ankles are cracking, my knees are killing me. But I'm sitting here wondering, at the height of all that, I went from 240 down to 207 at 6'5". That's pretty damn small. But after the kidney stone, I swore off this crap here, which clearly I'm back on the wagon. I went straight water and Gatorade for a year and a half. My skin cleared up, and I was on straight water until Hurricane Irma came through. I had no power. I'm on a well, so no power, no water for 16 days. So every day I was getting up, going to the gas station, dropping $70 on a power generator that somebody let me borrow after day 9 because I worked in radio. And when their power came on, they let me borrow it. Didn't give me AC, just gave me enough to turn on the lights and the TV. So every morning I was spending $70, $80 a day on gas for the generator. I was taking a 5-gallon jerry can across town and fill up with tap water. So we're saving that for the 3 birds, the 4 cats, the 2 dogs. This shit here was all over the place. And so I fell off the wagon hard. And as you're sitting there talking to me, I'm thinking, I wonder if the knee pains and the cracking in my ankles, if it would maybe go away if I can get back off this crap again and go straight water and Gatorade.
There's the connection between sugar and what it does to your brain, but also the inflammation it causes.
And I should know better. I've had Vinny Tortoridge. Are you familiar with Vinny Tortoridge?
No.
I've had him on this show. I've had him on my other podcast. He's on Adam Carolla all the time. He is the creator of No Sugar, No Grains. He's the guy who helped Margaret Cho lose all that weight. He's Howie Mandel's personal trainer. He's like one of the first celebrity personal trainers. To this day, he still kayaks 500 miles, goes on 500-mile bike rides. Anyhow, and his whole thing is if you don't eat grains and no sugars, and it's better for your liver and all that. But to your point, he always says the sugar creates inflammation, swelling, and all that stuff. And so I'm sure if I can get at least off the soda again and get back on more water, which I've been trying recently because I'm trying to get my weight back down. Because I'm 44. It's like, I don't want to stop because, talking about gatekeeping, I'm kind of back to where we were back when we were skating. Oh, wow, snowboarding's an Olympic sport. OCR is going to be an Olympic sport in the LA Olympics in 2028. OCR is obstacle course racing. That's your Savage race, Spartan race, which they've come a long way. If you actually go on YouTube and watch like some of when ESPN teamed up with them, they're doing coverage of the Spartan races. It's kind of cool to watch because unlike a road race, okay, you see the marathon, the 5 people in front, one of those 5 people, most likely the cat in first, unless he sprains his ankle, he's going to win the race. But in OCR, you have the people who are fast runners, then you have people more proficient on obstacles, and so you'll see 2 people up in the lead for 6.5 miles, but mile 7 comes, one mistake on an obstacle, and a guy who's in 8th place the entire day wins the damn thing. And it's just it's an exciting, it's a great spectator sport. So it's kind of funny. I've been doing it for 5 years now. Now it's going to the Olympics. But anyhow, I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to achieve some of the personal goals that I have in obstacle course racing because my knees and my ankles are hurting so bad right now. But I just got to suck it up, quit drinking the nonsense, go back to water and Gatorade, and see if I can start running again. Because I went from running 15 miles a week to running 3 now, if I'm lucky. I get on I don't have a Peloton, I have a mixed fitness bike, so I get on that now, so I'm still burning calories, but I want to get back to running.
Yeah, and we'll get back to sugar in a sec, but I don't know. There's something about running, especially people that don't run, go, oh, well, I don't run because it's hard on your knees and so forth. But, it seems to me like we were designed to run more than anything. We weren't designed to ride bikes. We were designed to walk and run. That's millions of years of evolution, if you want to believe in that, is how we were created. We were born to run. And, I attribute it again to my health, but the diet side of things just cannot be overstated. Yeah. And, I love cola, as much as anything, but, and I love beer. We're in a very fortunate place right now in the world, or in, this time, is there's a lot of great options. Mm-hmm. So like the fizzy waters and the flavor that somehow they're able to put into those damn things, I'm sure it's going to catch up to me somehow. But those Bublés or LaCroix or whatever, LaCroix, yep. Those have really replaced everything in my life. And even in craft beer now, there's a whole segment of progressive non-alc craft beer with little to no sugar and like 25 calories in a tall can. Yeah. And you really, they throw, even hop water is a thing now up here. I don't know if it is down there, where it's just like bubbled water with hops. And it's just like, if you've been off beer for a couple of years, it definitely tastes like beer to me. And
tastes better than the St. Pauli's girl.
But you know what? It's able to give you like that adult drink fizz and flavor. And not really, make your life as boring as just water would be, right? I guess. But yeah, it's the sugar part of it, me being conscious of sugar is bigger than anything. I think you can still be have the same results eating people eating all meat or all vegan or anything in between. But I think the packaged product shit with like a cartoon character logo is what causes inflammation. And ultimately inflammation causes disease and pain, right? So
it's such a mind fuck too, because I tell my brother, I said, dude, I have in my before my last year or so, I'm like, I have the dedication to run 12 to 15 miles a week plus go to the gym 3 nights a week, but I can't not eat like an asshole. How fucked up is that I have the dedication to, I'll go out and run a 7-mile savage race, but I'll go home and eat a pizza. It's like, how fucked up is that I can't control, this one aspect. I can work 12 hours and still go run 3 miles, or, I worked 12 hours, so I got to run 3 miles. If I would have worked 8, I'd run 7, but I still cannot stop. I'm still buying fucking nerds and goddamn sweet tarts and all that shit. It's like, why can I not stop eating like an asshole? If I have the motivation to do all this crap, and I think maybe part of me is like, well, if I do all this crap, then I can eat all this shit and not be 400 pounds. But I also think I eat all this crap. I'm 6'5". Right now I'm 222. I'm not happy, but like when I was at 210, 215, I'm like, if I would stop eating like an asshole, I would probably be ripped and be like a 195.
Oh yeah, if you flip it the other way and not work out like like the Hulk, and actually limit what your intake is, intermittent fast a bit, you'll be as ripped, if not more.
And I try not to eat until noon, but what I've done. Now, when I go to the gym, I'll do some arm exercises, but I actually went to a new gym because they have a 47-rung monkey bar, so I can actually practice that OCR type stuff. Yeah. But it's like I want to stay with it. But anyhow, back to you. I'm guessing you did like most of us old bastards during COVID and picked up TikTok, and that's how you got into it. I did it to see what my daughter was doing. That's how I got on the TikTok.
Yeah, you know what? So being a punk rock kid, I'm still a beer rep. I'm a sober beer rep, so I just see it as being punk as fuck.
Yep. Well, I was going to mention that earlier, and I don't want to drag it out, but maybe I'll have you on again. we had such subcultures to subcultures. When it came to punk rock, you were either punk rock or you're straight edge. You listen to the same music, but one of them was you wore the X's on your hands and you're proud of it, because we had subcultures to subcultures. That's another conversation for another time, but that's how crazy we were. You couldn't just be punk. I'm going to be punk to being punk. I'm a straight edger. I'm going to walk around with X's on my hands all the time.
Oh yeah, you had to be punker than the next punk, right? So, but really, it was, and you know what, to be fully honest with you, it does hurt my soul a little bit, because I do make my living as I'm bettering myself in my own world. I'm selling, Pabst Blue Ribbon and Colt 45 malt liquor to, the most vulnerable in my community, for sure. And that's a tough pill to swallow. It doesn't make me super happy, but it's a fantastic company, and it's really all I know. It's been my career since my early 20s.
I kind of feel the same way.
So.
I closed my business after 18 years, but I ran a computer repair shop, IT firm. So, it's like the internet's bad. It's killing our kids. It's making them fat. But here, let me fix your computer and hook up your iPad and all your internet stuff. Now I do MSP, where I'm managing business networks. So I don't feel as guilty about it. But I'm kind of the same way. It's like I'm now, I don't skate, I don't snowboard, I run, I fish, and I do OCR and World War II reenactments. So I'm all about the outdoors life. But I make my living off of making sure people can sit down behind a screen and do their work all day.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, that's life. And there's, I don't know, the role that I have, I never have to miss a soccer practice, or, there's a lot of great positives in being a territory sales rep, for sure. Right. So, it's something that I'm sticking with for now, but, again, like I've proven to myself that life can take you in very crazy directions in a very short period of time. So, who knows moving forward. But what, and to your credit, I wanted to say before we moved on to it, I've been down to Florida, and it's not easy eating well down in Florida.
And it's not easy running. It's so damn hot. I run at like 9:30 at night in the summertime, because it's like running through a fishnet. I mean, you literally feel like. And, it's so funny, back before I became a stupid runner, when I would skate, you'd see these people, why is a guy running down the street damn near naked? He's got nothing but why you got to wear shorts so small? Dude, if I could run naked now, I would. When I first started running, I had the long basketball-style shorts, double extra large T-shirt, and you get done, you feel like you're weighing 20 pounds, everything's soaking with sweat, and now it's like, give me the smallest pair of Russell shorts you can find, a pair of Saucony's, a hat, and something to put my cell phone in, and I'm gone. Because it's
3 weeks ago here, it was well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I don't know what the cold conversion is, but 3 months from now, I'll be running with goggles in minus 50 Celsius, where if any exposed skin is open, I'm getting frostbite in a matter of minutes. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to the wintertime.
Geography is a fun aspect of running, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I'm at sea level. Like, if I went back home to Kentucky where I was born and went running, I would die. I'd probably run like a 15-minute mile, because just the sea level is so different, running at level. So is TikTok your main social media platform, or?
Yeah, so to get back to it, because I'm a beer rep, I went on to TikTok because a few of my bar and retail accounts were advertising through TikTok. So I jumped on there to basically check out what they were promoting and take, screenshots for PowerPoint,
as examples of what people can do.
Go back to my company with. And I don't know, I guess in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had Adobe Premiere, a buddy of mine, and we started making, shitty little snowboard videos of that. And I love putting music to skating and snowboarding. And then what really caught on was, my story of, my physical and mental transformation. So I still sprinkle my content with a little bit of that, but you watch it, for the most part, it's just me with my influence in punk rock, and me doing my thing on my skate and snowboard. Again, pretty DIY, all by myself. And even running, I've ran over 3,000 kilometers since starting, which is basically from North Dakota to the coast, Seattle. And I haven't ran a kilometer or a mile with anybody else in that time. strictly been me.
Well, you will be, I don't want to go to it. I've said on this podcast so many times, but I will just say this. The first time you run with a group, whether you go do a fun 5K somewhere or you go find a run group, you will be blown away because you will never realize this until you do it. You have a natural your pack instinct kicks in. All of a sudden, you're gauging people. I can run faster than them. No, can't run faster than him. And you will instinctively find your position in that pack. And your pace and your splits you will cut time off your pace and splits without even feeling it, just because your natural instinct to fall into that pack. You will be surprised. I say just do it for the mind fuck of it. Just one time, go downtown if you know where every Wednesday morning I see these group of assholes running down the street. Go run with them one day and your mind will be blown away how the pack instinct and just pacing somebody, running behind and let them block the wind. It's a game changer. It'll blow your mind, especially if you never ran a mile with somebody. It's just weird how that natural instinct comes out of you. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen one day. For right now, I've got none of my friends back west want anything to do with it, and I haven't met anybody else out here to participate with me.
Well, I tell people I don't run for the feeling I get while I'm running. Running sucks. I run for the feeling I get when I'm done running, and that's what I'm running for.
Sure.
But the reason I asked you about the platform is because at the height of my weight loss, I started posting pictures on Instagram or just checking at the gym on Facebook. And part of the reason I did it is I knew that people on the internet love to push people over. They love to knock them down a peg. And so I figured if I start posting pictures or checking in at the gym and, posting pictures of me getting skinnier, then I know that there's going to be somebody waiting. And it happened. I'd be at the radio station in the break room, and I'm just looking at the honey buns, and a salesman come in. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and get that honey bun. That's an extra hour and a half at the gym. I'm like, you're right. You want me to fail. I'm not going to give you. And so it helped motivate me by knowing that there's people just waiting for me to fuck up, to start gaining that weight back and not going. And so, but the reason I bring it up is I remember the first day I got the message from somebody I went to school with who was probably 30, 40 pounds overweight himself. And they said, hey, just want to let you know, I saw your pictures, saw what you've been doing, and I started doing X, Y, or Z 3 months ago, and I've lost 20 pounds. And then I had a veterinarian. She was probably in her 30s, probably 30, 40 pounds overweight, wore baggy clothes. And I went back 6 months to clean her computers, and she had dropped probably, she's probably the weight she was when she was in high school. And she said to me, I did it because I saw all the pictures of you running and checking in at 5Ks. And it's like, holy shit. It's like when people start telling you that your silly little photos or your videos of you skateboarding in 40 motivates other 40-year-old guys to pick up their skateboards or build quarter pipes on the side of their house with snow in the backyard like you do with your kid. And it's weird to be in that position, especially a bunch of Gen Z ex-skaters and snowboarders and punks and dreads of society, to have random people sending messages saying, hey, you're inspiring me. Keep it up. Have you gotten those messages yet? I'm sure you had.
Yeah, you know what? The surprising thing is I haven't had one single negative knock message. But really the surprising gift of this whole TikTok world is just how big of a supportive community is involved in it. It's unbelievable. And really, I guess what you put out to the world, you receive. And I try to have a really positive but very sincere communication in my videos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really set anything up to be phony or bullshitty.
Yeah, me neither. I don't do the trends.
It's me, and it's how I perceive the world and how I'm presenting myself. But yeah, you know what? I don't have another, like, I have a small Instagram account that, like 140 followers, which are mainly my friends. And I don't have Facebook, and I don't have any other social media. So I really don't have any other comparison, but the world that I found on TikTok,
you got 13,000 subscribers. That's nothing to sneeze at.
There's some fantastic skateboarders at the highest level. There's some absolute beginners of all ages.
Don't sleep on the 55-year-old equivalent of you from the BMXers, the guys who were doing that shit in the 80s. they're getting their red lines back out, and they're doing their freestyle bikes in those videos. It's like these guys are like, some of them are pushing 57 and they're still perching those things up on the front wheel and doing the spin around, all that. It's insane.
It's phenomenal. It's so cool. And like I said, like there really is this like gravitational pull to having a positive attitude on that platform. I don't know what it is, but it's a snippet into how the world almost should be socially.
And it's crazy too.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone that follows me. I try to reply to every single message with something sincere and something unique, and not just, take it all for granted, because, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it makes me feel really, really good that, my little step-by-step process has influenced people that I'll probably never meet. But that it's creating some kind of chain reaction in their lives too, and furthering that on. Shit, man. Like, it's just, again, the beauty of something that can be so dark, as is the internet and social media. It's been nothing but positive in my experience, for sure.
And the main reason we had you on, other than to spend 90 minutes talking about skateboarding and snowboarding, is the fact that even in your late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, you can lose weight. You can, and it's a lifestyle change, and that's the key. You can't go on a diet. You have to make the lifestyle change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And over the last 6 years, mine's wavered a little bit, but I'm still not I'm still wearing a size 34 right now, so I'm not doing too bad. Some 36 if I just wash my jeans, but I'm not in the 38s again yet, and I'm going to get off the soda. But, I think I try to find people who have interesting stories to come on this podcast. As the title implies, you failed to fail. Of all intents and purposes, if you would have asked any police officer, guidance counselor, anybody with an outlook on life who knew you during your worst days, well, he's destined to be a fucking loser. But you failed to fail because you found success in your own way and on your own terms. And that's the type of stories I like to have on here, because I find people are motivated in their own different ways. Perfect example. I'm running all these miles. I'm running all these OCR events. Carrie, she's in the other room. She has lupus. She has fibromyalgia. She's always exhausted. And seeing me do this stuff did not motivate her any way, shape, and or form, because after all, it didn't apply to her lifestyle, because she has lupus and fibromyalgia. One day she's at school, fourth grade teacher. She sees a teacher she knows who has lupus walking down the hallway after hours with a Spartan Race t-shirt on. And she's like, wait a minute, that don't line up. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, you have lupus, yeah? How are you doing obstacle course races? How are you running? Because I'm a member of Facebook groups with people with lupus, and we all talk about how none of us have energy, and there's only so much we can do in the day. And just by seeing the teacher and discovering that a teacher that she worked with had lupus but still doing this stuff, that's what motivated her, not seeing me. And so then she started running with me. She ran her own 5K. She started losing weight. Sadly, she started fishing, and she really started making a name for herself in the fishing TikTok world. And sadly, back on June 21st, she had a slip and fall on some tile and blew out her knee and ankle. And we did an episode with her on here. You can go back and listen to it. But now, if the lupus and the fibromyalgia wasn't bad enough, now she's dealing with something called complex regional pain syndrome, and it occurs to people after strokes, heart attacks, and or surgery. And basically, it's another nerve condition that has no cure. It's the same medication she's already on for her lupus and fibromyalgia, but right now, on a good day, she only has 80 degree of movement in her knee. Can't get to full 140. Go to physical therapy, come home, she'll have 100 degrees, and 2 days later, it's back down to 80. Some days, she'll wake up in the morning and feel like someone's taking a sledgehammer to her knee. And so all the progress she made by being motivated through somebody else, now she's fighting a whole new battle. So now she has the fibromyalgia that kills your bone. Fibromyalgia, that exhaustion kills your bone. The lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. And now she's dealing with this complex regional pain syndrome. And so I know that people are motivated by different stories and different things. And so that's why I try to bring on people with different success stories. And I love the fact that you woke up and said, hey, I'm not healthy. I feel like shit. My back hurts. and damn it, I want to skate. And you did something about it. Regardless. And I love the fact that, I joke around saying currency-wise, at least here in the United States, 50 is the new 20. Back in the day, you can get a lot of things for $20. Now you can't get anywhere for 50. It's kind of the same with age. 45 is the new 20. We're doing, when we were growing up, if you were 45 pushing 50, you were waiting in line to do Cocoon Part 2. I mean, they were all considered, oh, you're old, you're getting ready to retire, you can't do anything. And here we are in our 40s, skateboarding and running savage races, and a lot of people are out there doing it. And a lot of that has to do with eating right and getting your heads out of your asses. And so congratulations on you for doing that and still doing all the things you can. And now you have the joys that most fathers can't do, which is to share that sport with their kids, because you're still physically able to do it, and you'll be around long enough to show them how to do it.
Yeah, thanks. Like I said, I've said this in a few of my videos. My son is absolutely worth all the, all the hard work it took to get to this point. And I'm worth all the hard work it took to get to this point. And my wife is, and my family, and everybody that, gets to, enjoy the person that I should have been all these years, and I knew I was inside. So, if there's it's so cliche, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But honestly, one step forward at a time. It's, when my grandmother was my age, she looked like Mrs. Claus.
Yeah.
Like, she's 96 now, and she has looked at 96 since she was 40 years old. We don't see the world that way moving forward. We're forever young if we want to be. Yep. And we do have the access to education and the access to athletics and the tools to get us moving forward if we want to educate ourselves and apply them to our lives. And if anybody wants to reach out to me on TikTok, I'm more than happy to respond and engage and just listen as well. It's a helpful platform in that regard.
And his TikTok profile is at @PunksNotDad. And before I let you go, if I say the name Todd Richards, what do you think?
Forever young. Again, that guy, fantastic skateboarder, obviously fantastic snowboarder, Olympic snowboarder.
I scurried off in our
fantastic actor from Out Cold. And you know what? He looks like $1 million. And if I could be 50 and look like him, I will be in a good place.
I scurried off during our interview because I was like, I know I have a book. I couldn't remember the title, and I was trying to look it up on Amazon. I finally saw it over there amongst all my World War II stuff. For those y'all listening, if you want a glimpse into the world of snowboarding in the 90s, go out and pick up P to the third power. It's P3, Pipes, Park, and Powder. It's the Todd Richards story. And he talks a lot about the Time Magazine article that talked about how skateboarders are nothing more than street thugs, and they all carried guns and drugs. And he talked about a lot of that lifestyle that Jared was talking about, the partying and the snowboarding and all that. And this is a very, very good read. And this will take you back to that whole scene back in the day of how, the party lifestyle, how skateboarders and snowboarders were all treated. And it's a very good book. I strongly suggest it. If you guys want an interesting look, it's the Todd Richards stories, P3, Parks, Powder, and Pipes. But for myself and Mr. Jarrett Fleming, appreciate you coming on. I know we went a little long, but I definitely appreciate it. And for you guys, thank you so much. And as always, head over to fail2fail.com or d-410.com. We'll have links to the video that we mentioned previously, as well as links to Jarrett's TikTok page, and we'll have him submit some photos so we can put up so you guys can enjoy some throwback footage. Thank you so much, sir. Had a great time.
All the best. Much appreciated.
Hold tight. And for the rest of you guys, thank you so much. And we will talk to you all very, very soon.
This has been a Digital 410 production.